Welcome to the CBS Eye on Money show. It is, I know I wrote this down, Mark, but already I forgot what day we were doing. It is Tuesday, December 21st. I know, we're pre-recording all of the holiday shows. We're not working this week. In fact, Mark and I are doing something very rare, which we have not done. Even when pre-COVID, we didn't do it so much. I'm going to go schlep down to where Mark is, and tomorrow we will be having a little holiday lunch. The Jill on Money show will have a holiday lunch. Where should we go, Mark?
What are you in the mood for? You want some dim sum? What do you want to do?
If I want dim sum, I'm coming to your in-laws. Why would I go out and pay for that?
No, that's a very different style of cooking from where they're from. Dim sum is a southern China thing. They're not from the South.
But they make them, right?
Dim sum? No. They don't do that.
All right. Well, listen, I'll let you guys pick whatever you want. Whatever you and Theo feel like, I'm going to do. I'm along for the ride.
All right. I'll think about it.
Think hard, man. Think hard. Anyway, this is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. And we are so delighted because the way that we try to do that is we talk to you. And if you would like to come on the air with us, all you need to do is go to our website, jillonmoney.com, and you can click the contact button. And by the way, there's going to be some very exciting news. So go to jillonmoney.com and bookmark it because, dun, da, da, da. Mark, I was very happy with the mock-up of the website. Mark and our team of website designers. Karen's not a designer, though. She's like an engineer, isn't she?
Yeah, some like user experience stuff. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Mark and I are like idiots when it comes to this stuff. We fake it and then we get so far. But anyway, Karen, who is a listener of the program, basically helped us take a look at the website and reconfigure the whole thing. She goes, well, what do you use it for? I said, all I want people to be able to do is ask us a question whenever they're on the website, any part of the website. And then she redid the whole thing and it's going to look fantastic. The unveiling is in January. Ooh.
You were pleased with what you saw? Because that day, I thought maybe because it was late in the day, I thought maybe you were probably tired. You seemed a little mellow to me.
I'm always mellow when there's a 3:00 meeting for any reason. And Mark, that was you know that because if you wake up at 4:00 in the morning, by 3:00 in the afternoon, life is mellow. And you know when you say to you tease me, you're like, how do you watch all this stuff? Because when I crash at like 2 or 3:00 in the afternoon after I've taken the dogs out, that is when I do a little binging and I watch a couple episodes of things that I would not normally do. Meanwhile, poor Jim from Hartford waiting patiently while we talk about all this nonsense. Hi, Jim. Welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so appreciative of you guys taking my call. This is great.
Well, listen, if we didn't start talking to you, you would hear more and more nonsense that we would. And we believe me when I tell you, Mark and I can fritter away a lot of time talking about nonsense. So, Jim, what brings you to our airwaves today?
The background is I spent too much of my working career being an excellent saver, I think, but being far too conservative in my investment approach. And since listening to you guys for the last few years, I've learned so much that I want to pass on to my daughter so that she doesn't end up missing out on opportunities that I missed out over the years.
I feel the same way about myself. It's funny you should say that about when you say you're an excellent saver, but not like you don't like risk so much. I feel the exact same way about myself. That's funny you say that. Someone just asked me that question, like, what's the best and the worst? And I was like, you know what? I don't like risk. So what is it that caused you to be an excellent saver, but maybe a little bit too conservative of an investor?
Well, I think that's just coming from my parents who are, Depression area folks, save. And, my wife and I were excellent savers. And I shouldn't even blame it on her. I was far too risk averse and had some very, very conservative investments that, for what they were, they did okay. But
you could have had a lot more money at this point.
I could have. And I don't want my children, and particularly my daughter, who's, a teacher, which they have limited opportunities. I want her to take advantage as much as possible over the next, 25 or 30 years while she's still working.
Yeah, it's interesting how we do pass along some of our habits to our kids. And so, like you said, you get it from your parents. I was a reaction against my own father, who was a trader, but who went broke 3 different times in his career. So that definitely informed me. So what can we do for your daughter? Let's talk a little bit about who she is, what she's doing, and how we can help her out.
Okay, great. Yeah, so she's 33 years old, and she's been teaching for about 12 years. Her only retirement account option, like most teachers, is a 403B, and there's no match for that. For the last several years, when she first got introduced to it, and this is before I had really any experience with 403Bs, she listened to the person that came to their school and gave her a moderate allocation with Equitable, and it took us far too long to realize the extent of the fees that are associated with that particular 403B and with many 403Bs.
Mm-hmm.
About a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, their school district, Fidelity became one of the 403B providers, their net benefits plan, Fidelity's net benefits. She is unable at this point. She needs a few more years, 2 or 3 more years before she can roll over her current balance at Equitable to Fidelity, which she plans to do.
Good.
But she changed her investment with her current balance to their lowest fee investment fund, which fortunately is an S&P 500. But their lowest fee is 0.6 or just about 0.6, 0.58, as opposed to 0.03 when she's in her own, Roth IRA, with Fidelity, so it's, 20 times higher.
When you put it that way, it's really startling, I have to be honest. Yeah. How much is she putting into that 403B right now? What's her contribution level?
She's contributing 10% of her salary, which is about $7,500 a year.
She makes $75,000 about?
Yes.
Okay. And then what's her contribution into the pension? Don't they have a mandatory pension?
Yeah, she contributes 11% is a mandatory contribution rate, which is just over $8,000 this year.
Okay, that's good. How much money is in that Equitable 403B right now?
The Equitable is, I think it's about $50,000.
That's great. Is she married or single?
She's single.
Okay, and no kids, right?
No kids yet. No, not neither at this point.
Just to put another fine point on this, since it sounds like you've done the research, it sounds like you're an engineer, but I don't know what you do. But I'm just totally guessing because you're very specific.
It's funny you should say that because I was an engineer for half of my career anyway.
Hey, Mark, do you know what this is? This I do, and you know how they say racial profiling? I do financial profiling. I'm going to be taken away. Okay, so the thing that's funny about that, Jim, is that I bet what is the mortality and expense fee associated with the Equitable. And everyone listening, the reason why I'm talking about this is that what Jim just said was for the S&P 500 fund inside of this Equitable contract, which is probably a variable annuity that's subsumed under the 403B umbrella. So it's 0.6% for the index fund, but then there's a fee for the contract itself. And that fee is usually called an M&E, mortality and expense fee or ratio. What is it for the Equitable?
1.2.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Crazy.
So you have to pay that no matter what. This is why so many of these contracts are really stinky, because what you do is you start with something like this. You say, okay, there's a fee to be in these plans. It's usually about 1%, whether it's a big company or small company. So it's 401k, 403b, there's usually like a 1% charge in general. But now this is 1.2%. So you add that, then you've got these sub-account fees on top of it, which are higher. And now all of a sudden you're paying, an extra 1 or 1.2 or sometimes 1.5% more than you would have if you just had the mutual fund platform from which to choose. And it sounds like nothing, 1% big deal, except that when you start to make a lot of money and have a lot of money in the account at $50,000 times 1%, like I bet your daughter would like to have that 1% back. Exactly. Hence the desire to move into Fidelity. Okay. So now tell me what is the actual question, because it sounds like you've identified the problem, which is you're going to get out of the Equitable. She's putting money into Fidelity. So what else can we do for her?
There's really two ultimate questions. Is there a point at which a 403B's plan's fees are too high, and then maybe she should just go into a brokerage account? And given all we've talked about, is she on pace for a good retirement between the mandatory pension, the 403B, and she does max out her individual Roth IRA each year.
I mean, just to put this in perspective, she's putting 20 grand a year into retirement on a $75,000 salary. She's kicking ass.
Yeah, when you look at it like that, yeah.
I mean, she's kicking ass. Where does she live? Does she rent?
No, she owns her own home.
What? How is she single? My God, maybe she wants to be single, but my God, this is something else. What's her house worth?
It's about $275 now.
Mm-hmm. And what's the outstanding mortgage balance?
$193. She just refinanced at 2.78 for 20 years. So she's got 19 years left on that.
Do you think she's a lifer as a teacher? Like she's going to hang in there to get the pension and everything's going to be hunky-dory?
I think that's the plan now. I tell you, these last couple of years have been really tough, and it makes you, when you start looking at, I got 20 more years to go. That's a hard hill to climb, but I do think so.
All right. So when you move to the Fidelity plan, can she now contribute to the Fidelity plan, the 403B right now?
Yes. She's been doing that for the last few months.
Is there a Roth option of the 403B?
They just announced a month ago that they have a 457 and a Roth option, but those are with Mass Mutual. And I was reading the prospectus, and it's a whole nother gobbledygook of fees and everything. So I was like, let's hold off on that.
Do you think she lives okay putting this 20 grand of her 75 away? I mean, does she feel comfortable? Does she feel like she's struggling?
Not struggling. There's not a lot to spare, but she's got a good cash flow.
Okay. And she's got an emergency reserve fund. I mean, I know teachers don't usually, they're not like, certainly she has tenure. So I presume she's not at huge risk, but you never know. So does she have an emergency reserve?
Yeah, she's got about 3, maybe 4 months worth of emergency fund. Okay.
And there is no brokerage account so far, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there is. She's just $2,500 in a non-retirement brokerage. She throws a few hundred here and there into it. And then, and then the Roth, which is just straight with Fidelity.
And is the taxable account also with Fidelity?
Yes.
All right. Mark, should Jim's daughter pull back on her 403B and just put money in her taxable? Like, what's your theory on this, Mark? Weigh in.
So just to be clear, she's now using the Fidelity 403B?
Yes. And just for difference, that same S&P 500 with Fidelity is now 0.015. Even with Fidelity, there's not a whole lot of choices as opposed to being in a brokerage account.
Yeah.
And most of the fees are are higher than you see in a brokerage account, but at least the big one like an S&P 500 is cheap.
So she's got the Roth, and there's no match, so there's really no incentive to use it. And there's no Roth option, so it's not like she's using it for that. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards building up a brokerage account.
That's what I'm thinking also. And we're not usually like this. I mean, we usually like the idea of using a retirement account when it's available. But, she's in a very low tax bracket right now. Does she also live in Connecticut, just out of curiosity?
No, she lives in Massachusetts.
Okay, so she lives in Massachusetts. The state tax is not so bad there, but she's in the 22% tax bracket. It's not like she's going down to the 12. She's got a good deduction. She has her home mortgage interest. She gets her, her taxes. I think that considering she's going to have a pension, I would agree that it might make more sense to, I don't know, like I sort of feel like she couldn't start to fund. I'd like to build up the taxable account. Maybe instead of her putting 10% into the Fidelity, is there any advantage, Mark, for her to keep some money going into that account, or should she just forget it and put all of the money into a brokerage account?
I'm trying to find a reason to keep using it. I mean, other than, if she's worried about some sort of creditor protection, but I don't think that's the case. So I don't really see a reason to have to use it.
If they were to introduce, and maybe they will in the future, a Roth option, would that?
Yeah, that would change my mind.
Yeah, me too. That's exactly right. But she's doing her own Roth. And how much money's in her Roth right now?
$13,000.
I mean, she's going to build up her Roth. I wouldn't mind her building up that account, that brokerage account. I agree. There's not a huge reason to go ahead and use it. The fees are going to be lower just to have a brokerage account option, actually. By the way, everyone listening, this is advice for Jim's daughter, not you. Because for most people, first of all, it's very hard to have the discipline to put the money into the brokerage account and not spend it. It does not sound like she's a big spender. The only reason to use the retirement account is that it's done so seamlessly. They take the money out. It's not a big deal. If she feels weird about this, then just tell her to go split it. 5% she can keep putting into the retirement account and put the rest of the money in the taxable account. But I like the idea that the money that is going into the taxable account, she can build it up. It may be something that we would change our minds about if tax law changed. But she's in a very low she just doesn't have a big tax liability right now.
Right.
And she's doing everything she should. I wouldn't mind her having a little liquidity, especially because, I don't know how long she's going to teach, but maybe it's 20 more years and she'd have 30 years into the system. I'm sure they max out at 30 or 35 years on the pension.
Right.
Maybe she's going to want to do something else at that time. And she'll want to have a pot of money that has already been taxed. And that's what the taxable account would do.
Okay, that makes sense.
This all sounds good. You're a very good father. Is there anything about your financial life we should know about?
I do have one quick question, and it's more just validation. I retired 4 years ago, and my wife is retiring next year. Most of our savings is in, retirement accounts, and I'm planning to do some Roth conversions over the next few years, especially when she retires, before we start collecting Social Security, to try to reduce the RMDs and increase the Roth. And I do have the cash available to pay the taxes. And I know you've talked about it many times before, but that sound like a logical approach to it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. This is Mark can give you the pat on the back for that.
I was just looking for my bell to ring. Oh, wait.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Then otherwise, I think I'm all set. I want to thank you guys so much and wish you a happy holiday season.
And to you as well. Thank you for joining us, Jim. Okay, Mark, this is a very nice situation. I like that the dad is calling on behalf of the daughter. Of course, Mark will be happy to have anybody have a question about a Roth. It's his favorite topic. It's maybe your favorite topic of all time, Mark.
I'm waiting here to see what happens with Build Back Better.
I just spoke to our White House correspondent, Stephen Portnoy, who said to me, as we're taping this, he said, well, I don't know. He did say that there could potentially be a deal before December 28th, but I don't know. It's all in Joe Manchin's hands. I can't believe that the fate of this legislation, this trillions of dollars, is in one person's hands. I think he really likes being in this power position. I think he's milking it. Don't you?
Oh, I'm sure he loves it. Yeah, everything's in his hands. Yeah, who wouldn't love that?
I don't know. I feel awful about that. That would make me anxious. All right. If you, like Jim or Jim's daughter, need a little bit of hand-holding, coaching, mentoring, you want your siblings, Mark and Jill, to weigh in on your situation, give us a shout. Go to JillOnMoney.com and click the contact button. While you're there, you can subscribe to our other podcast, our sister broadcast. It's called Jill on Money. If you just go to JillOnMoney.com, everything is there, all the content. By this time, you will be able to see our books of the year. I put mine up there. Mark, you'll have to think that for our next right before Christmas show, we should do our favorite interviews of the year. We should do that when we do our next Eye on Money show, which will be in just 2 days because we drop twice a week. So follow us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Mark Talercio, the co-host and executive producer, is simply the best. We are distributed by Viacom CBS. Please put your hands metaphorically on someone's back. Curiosity, compassion, and community. That is what we are built on. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.